You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sarah J. Loureiro.
Hey Biz Babe, do you feel like you have a beautiful, big vision for your business yet are struggling to bring in consistent clients? If so, I totally know how you feel and I've got you. I used to struggle with getting and booking consistent clients when I first started my first business 4 years ago. But after implementing this amazing 6-pillar system that I've figured out for myself, I was able to get fully booked literally within a matter of weeks. If you want the same system, I'm actually giving it away for free in my fully booked in 30 days checklist for coaches and creatives. So you can find that on bit.ly/fully booked in 30. That's capital F, capital B, fully booked in 30. Check it out. I promise you that it is going to help you so much.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show with me, Sarah. I'm really excited to be speaking to Cait Scudder today. Cait is a business coach and success catalyst for women who want it all. I know I've been following Cait's journey for a few months now when, she was in Bali. She lived in Bali for, was it a few years, Cait?
Yeah, I was there for nearly 4 years.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Just recently moved back to the United States. Really, really love her energy and all of her posts. So I feel like you guys are really going to resonate with her as well. So Cait, tell us a little bit more about you and, how you got into this business, how you became a business coach and, all the good stuff, how you even ended up moving to Bali in the first place.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's great to be here. And girl, I don't know where you want to go back to, but we can go back to the beginning. So I went to Bali for the first time in 2015. I had just quit. About 4 months before that, I'd quit my teaching job. So before I became an entrepreneur, I did a couple different things. I was directing a nonprofit initiative also in Central America down in Costa Rica. I worked for 2 years. I came back from that, went to graduate school, got my master's in teaching, and then after that, worked for a teacher for 2 years. And I quickly learned, Sarah, that I love teaching. I love inspiring people, but I was not meant to do it inside of a traditional classroom setting. And so what I decided to do then was quit that job, which was terrifying because I had no backup plan, no health insurance, no real fallback plan. But what I had was a desire to figure out what I really wanted and where I wanted to do it. And so I saw that a couple teachers that I'd studied with were hosting a 500-hour yoga teacher training and women's leadership immersion in Bali. That was in February of 2015. And I went, and that was the first insane, crazy investment that I made in myself, getting with all the flights and everything. It was like a $6,000 investment. Mind you, I had been living on a $38,000 salary as a teacher and, had barely any savings and no job and was losing my health insurance, months later. And it was crazy, but it was the best kind of crazy. And so I went to Bali, and after that month-long immersion, a couple of days later, I met my now husband on the beach in Bali. And so I always joke that I went for the yoga and I stayed for the love. And in reality, that's true. We spent like 3 amazing weeks together, went to Australia, met his family. And then he ended up coming to meet me in Spain about 3 months later. And so we got engaged after like 4 and proposed. And so we got engaged like 4 months after knowing each other, and then moved to Bali together in late December, like the beginning of 2015, very beginning of 2016. And so that's how I ended up living in Bali. Now, when I moved to Bali in early 2016, I still didn't have a business. I didn't know what I wanted. I was very much in that questioning, like, oh, I want to do something with my life, but I don't know how to package my gifts together. I was also like rapidly losing money and just didn't have any idea. And so I got a job as a technical writer. I was writing user manuals for a software company while living abroad in Bali. And I love sharing these like behind the scenes glimpses, Sarah, because I think it's so easy to look at the people that we admire and look at the success that they have now and think like, oh, well, that just fell into their lap, or they just scaled super seamlessly. And it's like, unless you have a rich uncle or a mad stash of savings or some other, or a credit card or whatever, there, like, in order to invest in your business, it takes money. And for me, like, in order to stay living in Bali, I needed to have some sort of income. I was like so close to moving back to the States to just get a job because I was scared of, what would happen. And so I got that remote job that allowed me to stay in Bali and really invest in my business. I hired a business coach. I joined an in-person, in-person mastermind. That was in March of 2017, that really like kicked my butt out the door and just got me to launch the thing way before I felt ready. And that happened in May, June of 2017. And, the rest is really history. Like, I started off more in the women's empowerment space, offering, I was calling it radiant living coaching, because I was getting so many questions from women of like, how have you been able to just leave this job that you didn't love, quit it, and like go on this epic adventure, move to the other side of the world, like boldly blaze this trail for yourself. And so I really started off teaching what I knew. And I think that's so important for entrepreneurs. And that's the place that I had so much success with right off the bat. And what I found was, after about 6 months of doing that work, what I was coaching all of my clients in, once they got to that space of believing in themselves and truly owning their desires and boldly starting to map a plan to go after that, I was business coaching every single one of them of like how to start a brand, how to design offers, how to go about packaging different products together. And so very early on, I learned that the women's empowerment space is absolutely the space that I'm the most passionate about. But the application of entrepreneurship and building a business is the space that that lights me up more than anything. And so that's the evolution.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. I love it. And I feel like we're actually really, really similar too, because I'm also a trained yoga teacher. I actually started out in the online space as a yoga teacher, and I managed to get that business fully booked out a few times. And yeah, it's, you always teach what you know the best. And that's kind of what I do the most with my clients too, is I help them get fully booked. So cool. Really interesting. I love the fact that you're just kind of like, this doesn't really happen overnight. This was like a very gradual transition, like, since 2015, since all of these things started happening. And I'm just reading like our intake form for this podcast. And one thing that really just kind of came up for me when I was reading everything is, don't let anything stop you. So perseverance is key, but also the get back to neutral before you trying to solve any problems in your biz. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because I felt like when I read that, I was like, ooh, get back to neutral before trying to solve any problems. What is this referring to? And how do you feel like you've kind of gone through this in your own business? And how have you helped your clients do this as well?
Absolutely. That's such a great question, Sarah. So for me, getting back to neutral means choosing to truly step into the embodiment of being a CEO instead of like a reactionary solopreneur. And so one of the things that I see hurt businesses the most, and I don't care. I mean, I work with clients from a range of still in a 9 to 5, dreaming about starting a business, to multi 6-figure CEOs who are scaling, a big team to like a 7-figure year. And so I really work with entrepreneurs at all stages of business. But one thing that is universal that I know to be true is that if we, as the leader of the company, allow ourselves to bring an unsettled state of reactivity, whether that is triggered by a feeling of contraction in your personal finances, or like a great example of this is like Christmas is coming up. And so we operate in the month of November and December from this place of like, oh shit, I got to get all the people in my world a present. And it's like a really expensive personal time. That's going to impact how you're leading your company, how you're showing up for your clients, how you're leading your team, which is not how we want to be operating a business. So I think that embodiment of allowing ourselves to come back to neutral is going to help and it does help so much when it comes to solving the right problems in your business. So let's say, for example, what's something that I've been working with clients recently. So let's say that there is an issue with a contract, like either a client is late on a payment or has missed a payment. What do we do, right? If we are operating from a reactionary, scared state, we're going to probably lash out. We're probably going to respond to any kind of correspondence without really thinking it through, getting back to neutral. What does a CEO do? A CEO gets neutral, gets objective, looks at the situation and asks themselves, how can I show up for this situation to engineer a win-win for everybody? And so what I think happens a lot of the times is when we're operating from an underlying, even if it's super subtle state of fear or contraction or worry, we can't actually bring our best to our business. We can't bring our best to our clients. We can't operate like the CEO that we're supposed to be. So what we need to do instead is truly ask ourselves, how do I show up to the situation in the most calm, in the most level-headed way? How do I provide whatever my external correspondence is, whether that's with a team member, whether that is with a business partner, whether that is with a client, how can I allow myself to show up in this situation from a place of neutrality instead of reactivity? And what I've just seen to be true so many times over and again in my business is that when I make this internal shift, literally everything outside changes. And I've seen this to be true with clients as well.
Ooh, yes, yes, I love that. And do you think that's also coming from a place of inner courage? I mean, I know that you talk a lot about women's empowerment and just kind of, showing up as your highest self and just kind of really pushing women to kind of step it up in terms of, their own responsibility in the situation, like you were just talking about, but also just owning up to everything that you want. How do you feel like that kind of all comes into play in terms of like being courageous and like being brave enough to, like you said, really put your best self out there and respond in a way that's aligning with, where you want to go and the type of presence you want to instill in the world?
Absolutely. So I think it 100% comes back to courage, because why do we show up reactively in any situation? We're showing up reactively because we're afraid. We're afraid of, if we don't lead with defensiveness and spikiness or prickliness or dominance or whatever, that we're going to be rolled over, that our desire is not going to be heard, that we're not going to have the outcome that we want. So I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be able to slow down, to tune in to like, all right, what's really going on here? Stay open as opposed to getting closed and contracted, but stay open to, how does the best version of myself respond in this situation? And then being trusting enough to lead with action that showcases that you actually believe that it's safe and possible to show up in that way. And every single time that we can do this, I always say this to my clients, like every time you do the work of coming back to neutral, that's the work. That is literally the work, because every powerful business decision is made from a place of neutrality. And when I say neutrality, I don't want to confuse that with like stoicism. I mean, if you've ever watched my videos or listened to me talk, I'm the most animated, like high energy person that I know, but I'm talking about making sure that we're moving. So it's not about removing emotion, but it's about removing any sort of reactions that are being dictated by fear. And every time we lean in to do the work of moving from fear to trust, that takes courage.
Yes, yes, yes. That's so, so true. It always takes courage to really like take a step back and just understand, what is it that I really ultimately want from the situation, right?
Exactly.
What's going to serve the highest good for everyone? I think a lot of my clients even really struggle with settling boundaries in their businesses. And so they're just like, oh, I don't want to respond to this person because I'm afraid of what they're going to say. Right. I think it's almost the opposite of what you're saying in terms of like responding catty. Right. It's also responding and just like kind of firming your own boundaries. And I think that it's the same thing. It all comes down to the same thing. It's just like taking a deep breath and really centering yourself in terms of, like, what is your truth saying, right? Like, what is going to be serving your highest good and their highest good? Maybe it is enforcing a little bit more of a boundary, right?
Absolutely. And I think another piece in that, because based on the example that you just gave, I just thought of another example of how this really plays out. So one thing that I see a lot of women entrepreneurs struggling with is this feeling, especially if they run a service-based business themselves, is this feeling of I am personally responsible for all of my clients'
Mm.
results. So let's say a health coach has a client who is like not doing their workouts or who's not being held accountable. I think that from a place of reactivity and fear, aka, is this person
Mm.
going to be mad at me? Is this a reflection negatively on my business? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I a bad coach? Like all of this almost self-doubt that gets catalyzed. Our work is to truly be able to anchor into the trust of, I mean, asking yourself, am I showing up for this person in the way that I need to be? But 9 times out of 10, that's the case. And if that's the case, then how
Mhm.
can I let it be enough that I'm standing in the expert shoes and maybe giving a reflection that is not necessarily easy to hear, but done with love, done in your style, done however, but in a way that truly serves that person. And I see clients a lot of the time feel like they almost take it upon themselves if a client isn't showing up to get the results that they need. And I think it takes tremendous courage and self trust and solidness in your own ability to be able to reflect what, and guide a client to the behavior change or the habit change or the execution change that needs to happen in order to get a different result. So I think that takes a tremendous amount of self-belief, but also being willing to have those difficult conversations. And ultimately, if you are in any sort of transformational field, that's a requisite skill that you need to
Mhm.
have as any kind of mentor or coach.
Beautiful, beautiful. Exactly, exactly. And it might not always, like, you might not always be met with the exact same type of inner truth. You might not be met with another person on the other end who is going to, take a deep breath and, acknowledge things from the best possible situation for everyone as well. But I think at the end of the day, you can't take personal responsibility for other people. And I think that you're saying this as well in a way that's like very almost like very spiritual, very just like rooted down in like what are the real things that matter here, right? What really and truly matters when you come into these icky situations or these situations where you do feel like you need to show up and be the leader.
Absolutely. And it's about trusting yourself to be the leader. I mean, I couldn't have put it a better way
Mm.
myself. That's really what it
Hmm.
comes down to. And ultimately, if you are leading others, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where, like, whatever you're posting about on social media, whatever you're live streaming about, this is where that actually applies, where the rubber meets the road. And so if this is an area that for anybody who's listening has felt challenging for you, I really want to encourage you in those moments that test your own sense of capacity, in those moments that make you doubt or question if you're doing this right. How can you anchor back even more deeply into self-trust and then lean into the solution that is in the best of your ability to make from there?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Um, Speaking of courage, and I know in the beginning of this interview, you talked about crazy, right? Talked about making these crazy decisions. And I love how you said that because I mean, everyone that I'm interviewing on this podcast, and even myself, I mean, we all have a certain level of crazy that really allows us to get to the levels that we're at, right? Like to get into the higher incomes that we're in, to get into the level of visibility that we're in. What are some of the ways that you've kind of used this quote unquote crazy in your business where you've made, investments or you've made decisions that absolutely terrified you, but were the ones that like paid off the most?
Oh girl, like, do you want me to give you the week by week breakdown? Like, I mean, I literally, it was funny. I was doing another interview this morning for somebody else's podcast. And I think the question was like, what is your secret to success or something like that? And honestly, my answer to that is I have made it a habit to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that any CEO who has experienced success and growth has made that their mantra. And that means being okay with like being, yes, setting like time bound goals and being okay with them taking longer and still working towards them. That means wanting something and not seeing it happen overnight and continue to show up and dream and build and execute until you get what you want. And so, I mean, for me, like I said, way before I even had a business, I invested in myself for a personal development cause that radically changed the entire trajectory of my whole life. You know, I met my now husband. I lived in an amazing country abroad for 4 years as a result of betting on myself and listening to that still small voice within that knew there was something bigger and there was something more. And that opened the space for me to now start my business, which has grown in under 2.5 years to a $500,000 company, you know, operating now out of the States, was in Bali, was operating as a, you know, digital nomad business for years. And that, all of that is possible because of leaning into risk. And so I've invested, gosh, I don't even have a number anymore, but I've invested well over, I mean, between coaching, team, programs, everything, well over $150,000 into this business. And that is a result, and everything that I've been able to achieve, you know, the major press features, the Forbes, the TEDx, the, you know, 26,000 women in my platform, like all of that has come from choosing to lean in, choosing to trust, choosing to reinvest money back into the business. That's another thing that I see happen with a lot of entrepreneurs is we see these fancy numbers like 10K months, 100K years, and we think like that means that I have to be saving that number in my bank account every single month in order to be successful as an entrepreneur. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all about saving money. I'm actually super rigid and strict about it. But I also reinvest money back into my business. And I think, again, that's another neutrality piece of being willing to look at money as truly an endless resource. And there is abundance, there's more money available all the time. So how am I making decisions that are going to operationally grow my business? And so I've, you know, invested really heavily in growing a team. There hasn't been a day in my business that I haven't had coaching or mentoring from at least one coach at a time. And I believe personally, everyone's got their different philosophy on this, but I believe if you are a coach of any description and you're not spending money, investing your money in coaching, we have an energetic disconnect. So that's something that I believe so passionately about. So, I mean, the real answer is leaning into that risk, leaning into that discomfort, and being willing to constantly reinvest your time, your money, your attention, your creative power back into your business is the thing that's going to ultimately, you know, yield back for you so many times over.
Exactly. I love that you said that. And I mean, I literally say this on every single podcast episode because I want this to be something that women are continuously hearing over and over and over again, because this is the secret to success, right? The secret to success is making those smart investments, both in your time and in your energy. And, you know, like all of that is going to translate to up levels. And one practical thing that I always tell my clients in my community is if you're not willing to invest at least 20% of what you want to make, you're not ready to make that amount.
Right.
And so if you think about, you know, the $100,000 year, if you're not ready and willing to invest $20,000 in a year to make $100,000 that year, you're probably not ready for that $100,000 year, right? Like you might want to scale down in terms of your thoughts and your thinking. And as you know, sometimes you invest even more than that, right? To have your first $100,000 year, your first $500,000 year or whatnot. And I think that even for me personally, I mean, I think it was last year in 2019, and I opened up about this in a previous podcast episode about, you know, like how I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for my goal. I had a goal of $500,000 last year, and I didn't make it because I wasn't ready for it. And I think it was totally fine. I mean, I still made well over 6 figures last year. But I think the purpose of your goals and the purpose of just like really putting yourself out there is to become the version of yourself who is that person who is creating the substantial change both in their lives and in the lives of other people. And I had a baby last year as well. So, I mean, I can also talk a lot. Thank you. Yeah. So I can also talk a lot about like how that kind of derailed a little bit of my plans in terms of, you know, like hitting specific income levels. But at the end of the day, do I have a successful business? Of course, right? Am I ready for that income goal this year or next year? Like, yeah, absolutely. But it's not necessarily just about the goals. It's about who you're becoming in the process and what you're willing to do and the actions you're willing to take in order to really see all of that coming into fruition.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. And I love I love the whole crazy idea. I just like the crazy is just kind of coming back to me over and over and over again. Is there any specific thing that you've done within the past few years of owning your business that has been like one of the most terrifying, yet one of the most rewarding for you? Is there any like one experience that you can think of that's like one that really pops out for you?
I mean, like I said, there are so many. Choosing to,
So
I
you've just
quit.
gotten used to it.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like when I first started my business, I was in May of 2017. I quit my writing job in October of 2017. I'd already filled up a VIP practice, booked out a group program with 30 people. I'd replaced my corporate salary. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then literally within the span of a week or 2 weeks, I quit that job, which gave me, benefits and a salary. And this is from living in Bali, mind you. Like I was able to do this remote work, a job that so many women that I knew would have killed for. And I quit so that I could be full-time in my business. And within the very same couple of weeks, I invested $15,000 in full in working with a business coach. And so that level of like double holy fuck all in on myself moments is just the way that I roll. And honestly, I think it's one of the things that not only has catalyzed my success because of those bold decisions and that decisions to get expert support to collapse time and really move me forward, but also that audacity to believe in myself so much has just made me such a better, braver, bolder, more skilled coach. And those are decisions that I've made, consistently through my business and every big up level and expansion. Last year, I hit my first $55,000 cash month in June in my business. So that was definitely a milestone. And the next month, I started investing $5K a month retainer in a PR agency. And so what I think is so important to remember in business is that the way that you invest your money, the way that you invest your time, and no matter how crazy that might feel and sound, it has to be connected to the outcome that you want. So for me, investing in that business coach was like, I don't want to that first business coach. It was actually my second at the time. The first didn't work out very well, but the second was very helpful. And that decision was, okay, I'm replacing my corporate salary, but I'm not here to make, however much a year. I'm here to make six figures, multiple six figures, and create a lifestyle that I want. So I want someone to help me do that. Same thing with investing that $5K a month PR retainer on top of having a team already. That was like, my specific goal is to have more exposure, more visibility, more press. And this is an investment that's going to help me do that. And so again, I think it's so easy to look from the outside and be like, wow, like all of this amazing success. And it's like those achievements are the result of hard work, investment, dedication, time that's put in. And that's where it comes from. And so I think that those, decisions to invest big amounts of money at really critical times when it would be very easy to stay comfortable and contract and just sort of settle. Like those are the two really salient moments for me. Either, okay, I've replaced my corporate salary. I've been able to quit my job. And then it's like instantly back into that discomfort growth zone in order to grow. And that worked for me super, super well. Within a couple months of doing that, I hit my first 20K cash month, last year, in the middle of last year, that was my first $55,000 cash month. And then immediately after that, it's like reinvest it right back into team, right back into strategic initiatives. And I think that muscle is just so important to be able to cultivate.
I love that. And what's new on the horizon for you? What are the new things that you're developing with your team and just kind of even in your personal life? Like, where do you see, the Cait Scudder brand? Where do you see it all going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of new things on the horizon. I'm newly in Los Angeles. So my husband and I just moved here last month, just settled in West Hollywood. So very immediate. What's going on is just getting up our home office set up to be able to set up a little recording studio for videos. And we've got some amazing products and courses lined up to film this year. All of my group programs are still running this year, which is great. So we're just in the beginning of Nail Your Niche right now. We've We've got Sell and Grow Rich coming up later this year. Both of my masterminds that run the Radiant Living School Mastermind and the Rise Mastermind. My podcast is just continuing to take off. So we've got a lot of amazing stuff in the works right now. A couple new great programs. I'm running 2 retreats, business retreats this year for women. So the expansion trajectory is really just continuing to reach more people, serve more people inside of our programs, and help more female business owners make money.
Amazing. All right, awesome. And where can they find you? So everyone who's really resonated with you on the podcast, what are the best places that they can go to find out more information?
Absolutely. So I would say my website, caitscudder.com, which you can totally go and check out and read more about my story and ways to work together and all of that. But the places that I'm most active and that I'd love for you to come hang out are inside my Facebook group, The Radiant Entrepreneur. So if you just search The Radiant Entrepreneur, see a banner with my face, come on and hang out. I post weekly free business training videos in there. There's an epic community of 2,300 women entrepreneurs and growing. So that's a perfect spot. And then Instagram. I love Insta. Love sharing, behind the scenes tips and tricks on my stories and just like weird shit about my life. But that's a great place. And also my podcast. So if you go to iTunes, Spotify, and search Born to Rise, that's a podcast where I release episodes every week.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Cait. It's been a pleasure. Congrats on your move to LA. And I can't wait to see everything that you're up to.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Hey, did you like or love this episode? If so, I would so appreciate it if you left a review and rated this episode on iTunes. It would literally mean so much to me. And if you have Instagram and are all up in your Instagram stories like I am, I would love it if you would share this episode with your beautiful followers so they can also get all of the high vibes, all of the free information that I'm giving you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarahjlorero.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.